Reality is not real, at least not in the way that you think it is. Even though there is technically an objective reality out there, every single person is living a completely different subjective reality, even if they're living in the exact same circumstances. And because of this, you have the power to determine what your reality is. My name's Georgia. I have a master's degree in consciousness, spirituality and transpersonal psychology, and in my free time I love to research manifestation and the science behind shifting our reality. Now, in today's video, we're going to be exploring how you construct your reality so that you can take control of it. Imagine that everyone is seeing reality through colour-tinted glasses. So everyone is technically seeing the same reality, but they're also not. Everyone's seeing it through a different lens. This is exactly how our reality works, and today we're going to be examining how, so that we can use this information to shift into a reality that we actually want to experience. Now, before we get into what we can control as individuals, I first want to look at a couple of reasons why reality is less certain than we thought, because it's really fascinating and often we take for granted that there is a set reality. So first, I want to look at this from the perspective of evolution. So Bernardo Kastrup, for example, suggests that from an evolutionary perspective, it wouldn't make sense for us to be aware of everything happening in our reality. In fact, it would actually be detrimental to our survival. Imagine, for instance, that you're out in the wild and you're being chased by a lion. Now, in that circumstance, it would be very detrimental to you if your consciousness is aware of everything that's happening around you. What you really need in that instance is to be very focused and only really aware of that threat, which is the lion, so that you can focus all of your energy and your attention on getting out of that situation for your survival. So when we take into account evolution, it makes sense that our experience of reality is curated, that we're not actually noticing everything that's going on. Now, Donald Hoffman takes us a step further. He suggests that, again, because of evolutionary pressures, our brain prioritizes perceptions that enhance survival over those that accurately reflect reality. And so he compares our perception and reality to a computer. So imagine that our perception of reality is the computer's interface. So it's what we're seeing on the screen. It's the icons on the screen right down to the pixels on the screen. That is how we perceive reality. But behind that screen, there is all of the hardware of the computer and all of the processes going on in the background. Now, I don't understand computers, so I can't explain this, but this is kind of the whole point. The whole point is that we wouldn't understand what's going on in the background or at the fundamental level of reality. It's just too much for us to perceive, and if we did perceive all of that, then it would actually be a detriment to our survival. So in response to this, our brains perceive reality in the way that we experience it. So what we're seeing isn't an accurate reflection of what fundamental reality is. Even quantum physics, which we assume is the study of the fundamental particles that make up reality, Donald Hoffman suggests that that isn't even the fundamental reality. He likens quantum physics and the quantum particles to the pixels on the computer screen. So even they, he suggests, don't reflect whatever fundamental reality is. In a nutshell, he basically says that our experience in the dimensions of space-time is just a construct of our brain. Now, stepping away from the evolutionary perspective for a minute, I want to go back to quantum physics, because the phenomena within quantum physics also make us deeply question the nature of reality. And this is because particles at the quantum level, such as electrons or protons, they behave very weirdly. They basically behave differently in different circumstances. Specifically, when a measurement is taken, they start to behave differently. The behavior of quantum particles shows us that reality at the fundamental level, or maybe not the fundamental level if we take Hoffman's view, but the particles that make up all of physical matter are much less certain than we thought. When we get down to the level of quantum particles, reality suddenly seems a lot more malleable. So clearly, in many ways, this objective reality that we take for granted really isn't as it seems. Now, most relevant to us and what is actually within our control is how our brain shapes our experience of reality. This is something that we actually can control and we can harness to shift our reality. So our brain doesn't just passively record information. We know that it takes in signals from our outer environment, but we don't just experience those signals as they are. Our brain interprets those signals, and it does this based on our own experiences and our beliefs, and so the result is that everyone experiences a completely unique reality. One way our brain does this is through the reticular activating system, which is a physical system in our brain, and what it essentially does is it determines what information reaches our conscious awareness. So we have all of these signals coming in, but not all of them reach our awareness, only some of them do, and this is through our reticular activating system. And the way it decides which ones to put through to our conscious awareness is based on what we focus on and pay attention to. So if you are someone who is always focused on lack, for instance, maybe the lack of money in your life, then your reticular activating system is going to filter in more information that is in line with that lack. So you're going to start seeing scarcity everywhere. And that's not because scarcity is more prevalent, it's simply because that is what you have tuned your brain into. So in this way, your perception of reality isn't real, it's biased, and it's based on what you choose to pay attention to. Now, the flip side of this is also true. It can also happen in a positive way. If you are someone who has trained yourself to focus on abundance all the time, then your brain is going to filter in more instances of abundance. So you're going to see money everywhere, for example, or things that represent money or wealth. And again, it's not because there is no lack or scarcity in the world, it's because this is what you have tuned your mind to. Now, another way that our brain filters reality is through confirmation bias. So we all have our own unique set of beliefs, and what confirmation bias is, it's basically a mental phenomena where our mind will seek out evidence to confirm our existing beliefs to us. So it's kind of similar to the reticular activating system, except the reticular activating system is a physical system in the brain, it's in our brainstem, whereas confirmation bias is more like a mental shortcut. So let's assume you have a belief that you're unworthy, for example. Your brain is literally going to seek out evidence to confirm to you that you are unworthy. So maybe you will notice every instance where someone speaks to you in a non-respectful way. Or maybe you'll notice every instance where you do something wrong, where you don't perform on something to the same standard that someone else does. Your brain is going to notice all of these things, and it's not going to notice all of the times you do something or something happens to you to show that you are in fact worthy. And again, it's not because there is some objective reality that exists in which you are unworthy. That is not a fact. It's because through your belief you have tuned your mind into everything that confirms to you that you are unworthy. So again, it's got nothing to do with the actual state of reality and everything to do with you and the way you have programmed your brain. So both the reticular activating system and confirmation bias are two examples which prove to us that the reality you experience is not simply objective reality. You are experiencing a reality that has been filtered in line with your beliefs and what you pay attention to and what you focus on. Now, to give you an example of just how powerful our beliefs can be in even warping reality, I want to explain a study to you. So there was a study done with wine, essentially. So they had some students who were studying wine, and what they did is they would take 2 glasses of wine. So in one of the studies, they would take 2 glasses of white wine. It was exactly the same wine, but in one of the glasses, they put red food dye, so it looked like red wine. And they asked all of these wine students to taste both glasses of wine. And you know what happened? They described the taste of these wines in line with white wine and red wine. So the wine that was dyed red, they described it as if it actually was red wine, when in reality it was a glass of white wine. So their belief that it was red wine actually shaped their taste of it. Not only do our beliefs filter our perception, they can literally shape our physical senses. So clearly the reality we experience is not objective. Now, we can either leave our brain to do its thing and to filter reality and shape our experience of reality in a way that is not in line with our highest good, or we can harness the power of our perception and our beliefs to shift our reality in line with whatever we want to experience and manifest in life. So I'm going to give you 3 ways you can start to do this. The first is to pay attention to what you do want to experience. If you want to shift your reality, then you really need to harness the power of your reticular activating system and make sure that you are focusing on what you do want to experience and not what you don't want to experience, because whatever you focus on is going to be filtered back into your conscious awareness. So stop paying so much attention to things that you don't want to materialize in your life. Stop watching the news, for example, because it is so full of negativity. Try and do less scrolling on social media, or if you are going to scroll on social media, make sure that you are curating your timeline so that you're following people and content that is actually inspirational and in line with the reality that you do want to experience. Make vision boards, do visualizations, do whatever you can to make sure that your focus is predominantly on whatever you are trying to attract into your life. The second thing you need to do is reprogram your beliefs. If you want to experience abundance in your life, then you need to program in beliefs of abundance. You need to be constantly affirming to yourself things like, I am abundance, I'm always attracting money, I have everything I need in life. You need to be constantly affirming these kind of things to yourself so that your mind gets wired in a way that is in accordance with the reality you want to experience. And on the flip side of this, really do your best to notice when you are thinking thoughts that don't align with your desired reality and stop affirming those thoughts to yourself. So if you constantly say things to yourself like, I am unworthy, I can't do this, I am poor, I can't afford these things, I have bad health, you need to catch yourself when you're thinking these thoughts, because the more you think them, the more you activate the neural pathways in your brain, so you literally program them into your brain. You need to imagine that your brain is like a computer and you get to choose the code that you program it with. So make sure that you are choosing a positive code, a code that is going to lead you closer to the life that you want to experience. Now, the third thing that you need to do is try reframing your experiences. Nothing has meaning in life except what we attach to it. So try to always find the good in whatever you're experiencing, even if it's a challenge. For example, let's say you lose your job. So one way to look at that would be that this is a setback. You don't currently have money in. Basically, it's a disaster. But on the other hand, you could look at this in a positive light. You could see this as an opportunity to find a job that better aligns with you, to find a job that has higher pay, for instance. There could be so many opportunities that come from this door closing. In both cases, the circumstance is exactly the same. The difference is how we choose to look at it. We can choose the meaning that we give to any circumstance. So you do not experience an objective reality, and knowing this is your superpower. You can harness the power of your perception and your beliefs to shift into a reality that you actually want to experience. Now, if you want to go even further in questioning the nature of our reality, you can watch this video next, in which I basically use quantum physics to suggest that multiple potential realities exist. So not only is there this objective reality that's out there and your subjective experience of reality, there also might be an almost infinite more realities out there. For now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and I hope to see you in the next one.